had many discussions with Mr. Ferrari, a fine man I've met with a number of times at the Cologne Free Trade Zone. We need technology there to track the trade through the system. Those software capabilities are available to us. And so that's why I'm grateful for Mr. Jeffrey Cooper, the director of Fintech at SAS, the former director international of operations at the IRS Criminal Investigations, to join with us now. Thank you, sir, and thank you for your company that provides such extraordinary leadership for free people around the world.
Thank you, thank you. Thank you, sir. Good morning, everyone. Thank you for the opportunity to speak at this prestigious event. Thank you, Congressman Pittenger, for the summit and putting this on. This has been my first travel since the global pandemic, so I'm glad to be here in the country of Panama. I'm going to tell you a little bit about my background, though, a little bit more about it, because it really sets the stage of how I look at anti-money laundering. And how I look at financial crimes. So I spent 30 years with IRS criminal investigation, fighting both civil and criminal fraud. I was the director for international operations with attachés dispersed around the world. I had an attaché here in Panama, so I've worked with the Panamanian government. So I've worked tax investigations, money laundering investigations, trade-based money laundering, transnational organized crime, public corruption, you name it. And one key point to all of that, it's about the data. Here at SAS Technologies, I travel around the world. I help government agencies really understand the benefits of utilizing technology to the best of its ability, and helping those governments understand that the cost of doing nothing is not nothing. So on one hand, as a criminal investigator, my job was to follow the money, and I did a really good job, and IRS did a really good job at following the money. But as a technologist, it's all about the data, following the data. The data really tells the story, and the question is, what story does it tell? So if you look at like the last 20 investigations that involves CFT, that involves money laundering, there's always been an IRS criminal investigators somewhere behind the scenes. So as you look at, and I say that because as you look at how to really fight this, you really have to look at it from a holistic point of view. So you have to look at, one, the technology, right? So how long does it take for an individual to go through, I don't know, 10 million financial transactions or 1 billion financial transactions? How long does it take an individual to do that? And no one knows that. No one knows that answer, but I can tell you with technology, you're talking minutes, hours, sometimes days, but to go through those transactions. So you have to have the technology that's there to use. So let's talk about technology from the standpoint of digital transformation. We're in a digital transformation right now. Whether or not the organization wanted to be in that digital transformation, they're in it. We've worked from home for the past year. Well, the criminals, they kept working, right? So looking at, if you look at the GDP right now, more than 10% of the world's GDP, if you look at the economic stimulus, that accounts for that. So right now, tax evasion and non-compliance is the largest economic crime in the world. And so if you look at some of the fraud that's there, one of the questions that is begged, you have to ask, was any of this diverted to terrorist financing, money laundering? And what percentage, right? What percentage of that? You have to be able to ask those questions. And then how can technology help to answer those equations there? So professional enablers. You have to look at professional enablers from the standpoint of looking at the attorneys that are out there, the bankers, the individuals that are helping to facilitate transnational organized crime, money laundering. What's lying deep behind the data that tells the story? The data is always there. Whether or not governments do a really good job, and even I worked for IRS for 30 years, and I worked with other countries around the world, and everybody was great at saying, give me this or give me that, but not necessarily how to use it, right? How does the information that you get First of all, are you utilizing it? And then how does that correlate to the rest of the information within your agency, one, within your country, two, and then how does that correlate to the information with all the partners around the world? So you have to be able to get a 360-degree view of a corporation, of an entity, because, I mean, let's face it, they're just hiding behind the fact that their hope is that governments will not work together. Also, let's talk about cryptocurrency, right? So folks are scared with cryptocurrency. It wasn't until 2014 that the United States said that cryptocurrency is property. Right now, the IRS, for the very first time, they put whether or not you have cryptocurrency is on the front of the Schedule 1040. Well, so if you want to stop money laundering with cryptocurrency, I think it's an opportunity for government agencies around the world to do the very same thing, to have a united front. And with it being on the front of the tax return, what that means, though, is that that's a significant emphasis on it. It goes back to when you're reading, the Washington Post, which is a paper in the United States. If something was on the second or third page of the Post, of that article, of that newspaper, it didn't have much of a significance. But because it's on the front page, it does have significance. But to demystify cryptocurrency, the IRS and other government agencies are using technology to demystify it. At once upon a time, you was anonymized, but no longer are you anonymized because you have the technology, you have the ability to link data together in real time to go after these bad actors, to even calculate it in real time. And that's definitely a significant increase there. Also with cryptocurrency, and I can tell you what's challenging out there, though, is that, so on one hand, you have the Bitcoin, and agencies with technology have gotten really good at looking at, let's say, the cryptocurrency. But one of the challenges on top of that is what's called non-fungible tokens. So now you have a Bitcoin, on one hand, that you use fiat currency to purchase. In the old days of cryptocurrency, it was pretty easy for us in law enforcement to go after individuals because what we did was we just said, all right, once it becomes fiat currency, it's either onboarded or offloaded because the bad guys said that they want to buy something, we could find that person. But now, if you have a non-fungible token on top of a blockchain, on top of a Bitcoin, that becomes more challenging because now the government has said, well, that's a collectible. So now you have a property, gain or loss, and now you have something that's called a non-fungible token that we've identified as a collectible, but also with that, there's not a unified answer for it. So what that means is that if you have a situation where there's a country that's identified as a tax haven, you can best believe that that same country or could be identified as a place to launder funds as well. So asset forfeiture, or let's look at that aspect, following the money. Now, I talked about following the money and following the data. To really disrupt and dismantle, you have to be able to get those assets. So you have to look at beneficial ownership and the registration. In some countries, there are more registered corporations than there are citizens. So in some countries, I'll say that again, there are more registered businesses and corporations than there are citizens, right? That has been a critical problem around the world. I mean, we're doing more to address that problem, but what technology does is that it helps us to really look at those transactions, to look globally at that individual corporation or those IBCs to help to understand where the beneficial ownership lies. But that's not something that can be done by agents necessarily. So even as we face the challenges that we're in today, you look at hiring, right? So it was one time you could hire a special agent, a criminal investigator, an auditor, but now you have to hire data scientists, because what you're really trying to do is look within the data. So now you're hiring data scientists or cryptocurrency experts. So the landscape has changed, and technology has changed, but we need the laws to also change, right? The laws have to change to catch up. There needs to be more cooperation with the public-private sector that's out there, because it's one thing to have legislation, it's another thing to ask the governments to enforce it, and it's a whole nother output. You have to look at the output. How is this information going to be utilized? Because what you don't want to do is you create a situation, and we did this early on with FATCA, and we did this early on with FATCA, where we required countries to provide us information, and we didn't have the quick means to utilize the information that was gathered. In the crypto world right now, there's legislation that's out there that's going to have reporting requirements of $10,000. If there's a transaction over $10,000, it should be reported. Well, you also have to have the ability to data mine that, to look deep within that particular data set there. So, tax laws, digital transformation, technology, asset forfeiture, professional enablers, beneficial ownership. Do you see the theme here? All of these are collectively financial crimes. The technology is crystal clear that that's the way it's going, because we're in a digital, like I said, we're in digital transformation today. I know it's been a year since I was into an office. My friends who are in law enforcement, who are in FBI, DEA, Secret Service, Interpol, Europol, around the world, they've had the same problem. But again, the bad guys, they kept fighting the fight. They kept looking for opportunities out there. So the thing that has increased, I can tell you, is the data though. Because if you think about it, think about all the transactions that you had to make sitting home to conduct business, to conduct your personal life. So the amount of data that's out there has increased. Now, it's the ability to utilize it. It's the ability to use the open source technology that's out there. So open source from the standpoint, you can get a 360-degree view of an individual just by the added things that they do. How many people here, raise your hand, have apps on your cell phone? The answer is probably yes. Did you read the fine print that's attached to those apps on your phone? Well, that fine print, someone is tracking you. Someone is tracking every single transaction, every single thing that you do there. But that's all technology. And then being able to utilize that technology is key. Thank you.